Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I hope all of you guys are doing fine. So we have done till section number 7 so far, and today we are going to start the second section of paper 2 and the eighth one in sequence, that is named as programming. Now, although the name says programming, in the scope of O-level syllabus for GCE, actual programming language is not needed or not required, whereas you are simply asked to recall and learn different programming concepts. The actual syntax of a specific programming language is not required by the Cambridge examiner. So this section has 3 subsections, and today in this lecture we are going to be viewing section 8.1, that is programming concepts. So before we start, there are a few things that you should know. Some different key definitions. The first one is statement, a single instruction that is written in any programming language. Sometimes this is also referred to as a single instruction written in any high-level programming language. Line concept is adopted by some programming languages, whereas it is completely overlooked by other programming languages. Anyhow, the concept of line is still quite simple. Basically, whatever you write into an IDE, it is given automatically line numbers. Some programming languages or some IDEs give the line number as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and so on, whereas in some languages such as the C language and GW basic, it is often given as 10, 20, 30, 40 and so on. Anyways, that is basically something to be handled by the IDE and not really the programmer's headache. So this is just a feature of some programming languages, nothing else, such as GW basic, COBOL, etc. Now next thing is a variable. A variable is a namespace or a memory space or a quantity that is named in a program whose value can be changed or that will change during the run of the program, whereas a constant is a memory space or a data holder or a value that is fixed and will not change during the run of the program. It can be declared by using constant keyword. For example, constant max marks equals to 100. This can be written something like this. Like this. Over here the same thing is written, but there has been a line break, so you might be a little confused. Next is identifier. Identifier is the name given by a programmer to a file, to a table, to a variable, to data, to an array and so on. Identifier is basically the name that identifies some specific part of data or a programming code. Reserved keywords or reserved words. These are the names that have some specific significance to the compiler or interpreter. They can't be used as an identifier, such as a print is already a keyword in different programming languages or in pseudocode, so you cannot make a function or a procedure with the name of print in order to do something else, because print is already a predefined function. If I give the example of Visual Basic, then console.writeLine, the writeLine function is already a part of console library routine. You cannot make a new program with this a new function with the same name writeLine and store it in the console library file, because that file that piece of code already exists. You cannot use the same name for a different piece of code. Next we have expressions. Expressions are a set of variables, constant, and some operator in between them. Declaration. The process of declaration specifies the properties of an identifier. Means when you for the first time declare or create a variable, that is known as the process of declaration. For example, dim mark as integer if you're using Visual Basic, or a var means variable mark equals to 0 if you're using Java, or integer int marks equals to 0 if you're using Python, and this semicolon is there by mistake. It should not be there. Python do not have semicolons. Next we have some basic data types. Integer, a positive or a negative whole number. Real, a positive or negative number with decimal places or fractional parts. A char, which can hold a single character only, for example T, F, A, etc. A string, it contains alphanumeric data, means both numerical and alphabetical data can be stored along with special symbols. A string variable can be blank, this is known as empty string. And last but not the least, the Boolean data type, which can only have two values, either true or either false. There cannot be a third value. According to programming language such as Java, such as Python, Visual Basic, or whatever programming languages you are going for, every programming language has slightly different set of basic data types. Such as in Java, we do not have real, instead we have double and float. But in order to standardize things, and as I told you before as well, in O-levels, Cambridge O-levels, GCSE or IGCSE for the most part, you do not need the actual experience or actual expertise of a programming language, because the examiner just wants you to learn the logic and not be bound to a specific programming languages. Thus, examiner has included these as the standard data types for any programming languages. They are basically a part of pseudocode. Anyways, basically in chapter 8 as well, the examiner is following the concept of pseudocode in order to teach you guys logic, and just for the sole purpose of logic building, he has included many programming concepts from actual programming languages into chapter number 8. Next we have some operations or some programming concepts, which are sequence, selection, repetition, and repetition, and string handling. So sequence is basically the programming instructions or statements that are followed in a in order, or the order by which some specific programming instructions are followed. If you change the order of your written piece of program or your written piece of pseudocode, it will not work properly. That is why sequence is very important. Sequence basically means the order in which some programming statements should be followed or should be read or should be executed. Selection means that selection basically allows data items to be picked out according to a given criteria. It basically means that selection enables the program to make decisions on what to do, or it allows the flow of program control to the next variable, to the next sequence of lines according to the given criteria. These are also known as conditional statements. A repetition, they are also called iterations. It is the process of running the whole or a part of program again and again, a fixed or unfixed number of times. For example, using loops to perform some task again and again for a specified number of times or until a specific condition is met. Okay, so moving ahead, for a program to be useful, the user needs to know what they are expected to input. So each input needs to be accompanied by a prompt stating the input required. You have to use this. You have to be very careful about this rule. Whenever you have to write down a code or a program in your Cambridge paper in order to gain marks, you always have to give meaningful prompts with it. Means before taking each input and before displaying each output, you have to accompany it with proper suitable message or line. For example, please enter your name. You cannot directly write input name. You have to give this statement before the statement input name. For a program to be useful, the user also needs to know what result is being output. So each output needs to be accompanied by a message explaining the result. Last but not the least, comments are now a part of O-Level Cambridge exam, and you need to comment your written piece of code so that anyone else or the examiner specifically reading your code can understand what logic you're trying to build. Next, we have something that is known as string handling. As we have discussed before, string is basically a set of characters which are either numeric, basically alphanumeric, or alphabetical in nature, and they can contain special characters as well. Now, if you manipulate those strings, if you manipulate textual data in any form, it is known as string handling or string operations. Different languages provide different types of string operations through different keywords, but 4 of the operations are standard, which are available in almost every programming language, and hence they are a part of your pseudocode as well, and they are part of your O-level syllabus as well. If you want to learn more than these 4, you're more than welcome, because they'll help you in A-levels computer science. Plus, for the sake of chapter 8, if you want to learn an actual programming language while going ahead with this chapter, that is again very good, because in A-levels computer science 9618 you would be required to learn one of the 3 programming languages, either Visual Basic, Python, or Java. And as your paper 4 would be a practical paper which you would need to answer using one of the 3 mentioned languages. So it would be a very good idea if you would like to start learning one of the 3 programming languages this early, or while doing your O-levels. So anyways, coming back to our topic, string handling can be of 4 types. Length. The length string handling, the length is a sub function or a keyword that finds the length of any given string. Means it basically tells you how many characters are there in the given string. So the length function can be used in pseudocode as length written in capital with the round brackets, and inside the bracket you can either write the name of the string variable, or you can write the string as in inverted commas. For example, length Pakistan or length country name would written 8, because there are 8 characters, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. The next function is the substring function. Substring basically extract some words from your given string, and for that you need to provide 3 things to this function: the name of the string or the content of the string, and the start position, like from where do you want the extraction to start, and the length, that how many characters would you like to extract from your given string. So you can write it as substring, and inside the bracket, inside the parenthesis, you can write the name of the string variable, for example, or the example, for example, substring I live in Karachi, comma 11 means start extracting at 11th character, and extract how many words or characters? Extract 7 characters. So the 11th position is this. So the substring function is going to start counting 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, and it would return these 7 characters as a result, means it would return Karachi as a result. You can also do this, that you can store this part, I live in Karachi, in a variable such as my string, and then you can simply write the name of that variable over here, substring my string comma 11 comma 7, and it would give you the same result. One thing to remember is that pseudocode strings start at position 1, whereas most programming languages start at position 0. The next string function is the upper function. It converts all the letters or characters in a string in uppercase. Like for example, computer science would become COMPUTR, computer science, means all of the words in the string would be converted into uppercase, and the keyword for that is U case. Depending on the programming, this is for the pseudocode, depending on the programming language like Java, Python, or Visual Basic, you may need to use the keyword upper or the same as the pseudocode U case. Anyways, you simply write the keyword uppercase, and inside the parenthesis or the round brackets you write the name of your string variable or the content of your string within inverted commas. For example, U case computer science or U case my string would return computer science, given that inside the variable my string you have already stored this value. The last string operation you have in your syllabus is known as lower or lowercase. It converts all the letters in a string to lowercase. For example, the word NASA would become NASA written in small letters. The syntax is L case string content or the name of a string variable. For example, L case NASA or L case my string, given that you have already stored the word NASA into my string, would return NASA written in all small alphabets. These string operations are usually provided in programming languages by the library routines, and they are, like I've mentioned previously as well, they are basically a part of almost every programming language. Next we have something that is known as procedures, functions, and parameters. So a procedure is a set of programming statements grouped together under a single name that can be called to perform a task at any point in a program. Okay, basically what you do, you write a few statements of programming language, and then you give them a specific name, so that instead of if you have to perform that task again somewhere in your program, then instead of writing those 5 lines or 6 lines or 8 lines again, you can simply write them in one line. You can simply call them in one line. You can simply write the name of that function, and the same task would be performed at a second or third or fourth point again and again. The syntax is that procedure, the keyword you use is procedure, and then you give it a name. Every procedure and every function has to be given a name, means identifier, and then you write the piece of code that what do you want, what task do you want to be done, and at the end you write end procedure all in caps. This has to be in caps as well, this procedure. For example, procedure line, and the task to do in when this function is called is print and this part, these series of dashes or these lines, and end procedure. So whenever you need to print a horizontal line in your program, what you are simply going to do, you are simply going to call it. Now whenever you need to call the procedure, you simply write call, the keyword call, like this, and you write the name of that procedure. For example, if we are talking about this, the procedure line, then we simply call line, and wherever you write this word call line, then at that point when the program is compiled, a line like this would be printed. Next we have something is a function. Function is a set of programming statements grouped together under a single name that can be called to perform a task at any point in a time. It is basically, it has the same basic definition as a procedure. In contrast to a procedure, now here's the difference, that why do we have two different things if they are basically the same. A function will always return a value back to the main program, means it would calculate or find something out and then return it to the main program or display some value, whereas a procedure does not returns a value. It simply performs a task and that's it. It doesn't calculate or returns a value. The keyword return is used as one of the statements in a function to specify the value to be returned. This is usually the last statement in the function definition. Now looking at the syntax, function name, then we write the name of variable and data type, and returns and the data type for outcome, and a return task to perform and function. This is the syntax for a function. For example, you want to write a function to convert price from dollar to cents. So we write the keyword function and then we write down the name of the function. Since like procedure, every function needs to have a name. Then we write down the name of the variable which you are going to use in the calculation of this function, that is the variable price, and then you tell the data type of that variable. Now the data type is real, and what will it return? Like what would be the data type of the return value? Obviously, if you're converting some price into cents, it would be real, or it's best to keep the same as your basic variable data type. Now what action do you want it to perform? Multiply price with 100, because in each dollar there are 100 cents, and the keyword end function is used at the end in order to notify that a function has ended. Because a function returns a value, it can be called by assigning the return value directly into a variable as follows. For example, price, and you assign the value what to the variable price. You call the function cents, and in the parenthesis as a parameter you passed on the value of this price. So that basically means that whatever was stored in price is now converted into cents. Function calls should always be same as function definition. You can this means you cannot use a different name for calling a function other than what you have already defined in the functions definition. When procedures and functions are defined, the first statement is the header, which contains the name of the procedure or function, any parameters passed to the procedure or function, and their data type. Parameters are basically the variables or the values that would be acted upon or manipulated by that said function or procedure. Their data type should also be mentioned, and the data type of the return value. If you're writing a function, you have to mention the data type for return value, that like whatever you're going to get in return, you have to mention its data type as string, integer, real, boolean, etc. Procedure calls are single standalone statements. Function calls are made as a part of an expression on the right hand side. You can call functions on their own as well, but most of the time we assign the values from we call the functions as using assignment operator and assign the return values into a variable, because obviously when we are writing a function and we are getting a value, so we need that value somewhere in our program, so we have to store it in some variable. Parameter. It is the variable or set of variables that store the values of the arguments passed to a procedure or function. Now arguments are the boundaries, or are the words, or is the data upon which a function or procedure works. Some but not all procedure and functions will have parameters. Procedures with parameters mean that you pass a value to a procedure, and so that they can modify the actions which are being performed. For example, to decide the length of line to be outputted, for example, you want that the user can decide how many dashes should be there in the procedure line that we just discussed above. This is done by passing an argument or a parameter when the procedure is called to be used as a parameter by the procedure. The syntax can be procedure name, variable name, data type, task to be done, and procedure. For example, procedure line, and it would be, the variable name would be number, and its data type would obviously be integer. Declare count integer, for count 1 to num means number, print a dash next count, and procedure. Now you can call it as this is not function, this is parameter. Call procedure name, parameter value, or parameter variable. For example, call line 7 or put the value 5 in number, and call line number. This would print 5 dashes, whereas this line would print 7 dashes, something like this. If you write call line 7 and hit enter, this would display this 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, whereas if you follow this number equals to 5 and call line num, then this is going to print 1 2 3 4 5 dashes. Next we have a concept that is known as global variable and a concept that is known as local variable. These are two types of variables. When you are using any specific programming language, then the variables that you defined can either be labeled as local, or they can either be labeled as global. These are the two categories for a variable or a constant. A global variable can be used by any part of a program. Its scope covers the whole program. Even if you have written a program of let's say 5,000 lines, and if you have declared a global variable in the 5th line, then you can use it in even the 4,950th line, no problem at all. Whereas a local variable is a variable that is declared or created to be used by a specific part of the program only, and as soon as that part or that block or that portion of code is run, the local variable ends, or its scope ends right then and there. It cannot be called or used by any other part of the program. Then we have a few, in the end of section 8.1 we have some more operations. They cannot be exactly called as string operations because they basically are mathematical functions, but just like the string handling operations which we saw above, these 4 operations are also a part of almost every programming language's library routines. They are pre-written functions, hence they are a part of this section 8.1. The first one is mod, a function or a library routine that divides 2 numbers and return the remainder. For example, mod 7, 4 would give you 3, as mod is basically the modulus function. Div, division, a function which divides 2 numbers and return the quotient as answer. For example, 8 div bracket open or parenthesis 8, 2 would give 4. Mod and div both divide the first number by the second number provided. Mod gives you the remainder, whereas div gives you the quotient. Next we have round, a function which rounds the given number to a specified number of decimal places. For example, round 3.14285, 2 would give you 3.14. Whatever is the number of you write over here, the program is going to round your given number to that many decimal places. If you write over here 0, then you are only going to get 3. If you write over here 5, then you are going to get 3.14285, the same as the answer, because it has 5 decimal places. If you write here 6, then you are going to get over here an additional 0. This would be your answer, because you want the program to return you a number with 6 decimal places. Last but not the least, we have a function that is known as random, a function which returns a random value between 0 and 1 inclusive, like from 0, 0.1, 0.11, 0.22, it would return you a random number. This random is a part of maths library in most of the programming languages. This is one of the basic functions that basic mathematical functions that are provided by any programming languages. And in the end, again, we have a glimpse of chapter 7, how to create a maintainable program. After a program is written, it may need to be maintained or updated by another programmer. Hence, you should always put comments, use meaningful identifiers. Means you should write your program in a way that if you yourself are going to have a look at it a couple of years later, or somebody else is going through your code, then they can realize what is happening and they can decipher what logic you have used and what inputs you are getting and what outputs you are displaying. So use prompts, meaningful messages, meaningful identifiers, and always put comments. So again, this is a summary of what I have just said, that it should always use meaningful identifiers, should be divided into modules for each task using procedures or functions, and it should be fully commented using your programming language's commenting feature. Not every programming language uses 2 forward slashes as comments. So as I was saying, not every language uses the same double forward slash method for starting a comment. In Python, you need to write down a hash symbol before the start of your comment. Anyways, so this covers all the major topics of our section 8.1. I hope you have understood everything. I'll see you guys in the next video. If you have any questions or queries, please feel free to ask me. And before I go, in the end, as you guys know, the current syllabus have been updated a lot, almost 3 times by the Cambridge examiners, and we don't really have past papers to practice. So for that, for overcoming that gap, that huge gap, for bringing you guys practice questions, I have developed 2 workbooks, 2 topical workbooks, one for paper 1 and one for paper 2. This one right here, I'll show you the title. This is for paper number 2. These are these are topical workbooks that cover all the sections of paper 1 and paper 2 exclusively. As you can see, this is the table of contents for paper 1 book. As you can see, there are at least 20 to 30 practice questions for each subtopic, and it covers all of the sections along with the mark scheme. The mark scheme has been styled to match the examiner style of Cambridge GCE and IGCSE O-Levels examiner, so that you guys don't have any problem. Then we have the table of contents for our paper 2 books from section 7.1 till section 10, and once again we have the mark scheme included so that you guys can practice properly. Last but not the least, I have I've written some study notes as well for covering all the sections paper 1 and paper 2, and all of the sections of paper 1 and paper 2 are covered in depth in these study notes. So these are on sale now from inshallah from 1st of Feb. And if you are among the first users to book an order, you are going to get a special gift along with your books as well. So book now. You can find the WhatsApp number to place your order in the description below, and I hope you'll definitely going to find these 3 books very useful. I'll show you more glimpse of my books in my next video as well. Plus, if you want extra practice, then I have some more workbooks as well, which you can discuss with me over WhatsApp, and I have the solution keys for those as well. Anyways, take care. Feel free to ask me if you have any problems, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care. Allah Hafiz.